bro?
Nothing, man. I was just thinking we need to find like a dope intro song or something.
One that we don't get sued for using.
Yeah, definitely. That's the most important thing. Um,
I mean, if anything, you would be the person because you would have the connect for at least like a instrumental for something.
yeah, definitely. Now I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna come up with something. I might have something in the folder that I could just use and be like, yo, look, man, so we
'Cause
use
other
it.
than that, we're gonna LimeWire this shit, bro.
Nah, so you trying to get us knocked before we even get started. Crazy.
Before Apple Music, we had LimeWire,
Words, son, and Kazaa, Napster, all that shit.
FrostWire, LimeWire,
Everything.
FrostWire, Napster,
Yo, I gave my computer all types of illnesses and viruses, B.
bro. Trying to
Downloaded everything.
trying to put a song on your profile background on AOL.
No, son. Nah, we dating ourselves now. See, you talking about we not old.
We're not old. That's
Nah,
just
you
what
right.
we grew up with.
Nah, that's facts. That's facts. We not old. But it's been a minute since we did this. I think that was a great little intro to what we want to talk about today. So reintroduce yourself to the people.
All right, once again, I'm the nameless partner in this. No tag, no extra, no AKA. It's just straight up Gil. 3 letters, keep it simple. Always has, always will. All right.
Woo! My man, 3 letters.
Three letters, 3 letters. That's
I
how we do.
respect
But
it.
I'm excited. It's been a minute since we did this. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Looking forward to today's episode. Obviously, conflicted
Facts.
schedules. Living in Philly, living in San Francisco, completely different time zones.
Both from the Bronx. And I am Mr. AKA himself, Eno Mother effing Bull, AKA Bully Smooth. Got a lot of AKAs. We ain't here for all that. Let's get right into it. This is my brother Gil. We've been friends for 20 years now. Um, both hip hop heads, both into sneakers. So we figured we'd come together, do something of a podcast, to
Mm-hmm.
discuss all those things, culture.
Yes,
And
sir.
today we're talking about music. So mainly hip hop. Um,
Mainly hip hop.
mainly
Only
hip
hip
hop,
hop.
probably only hip hop. Yeah,
Just for today. Just for today.
just for
Just for
today.
today.
Not that we don't love all types of music, but we're
Right,
definitely
right.
we're definitely big hip hop heads, and so we figured we're gonna talk about hip hop. So Gil, won't you kick it off, man? Start it off, get the ball rolling.
Yeah, man. So obviously we're gonna go ahead and have episode 2. We started off episode 1 with our love and girls for the sneaker game. So today's episode is only right. We keep it going as a introductory process. We're gonna start talking about our top 5. We're gonna talk about our top 5 rappers, top 5 albums, and whatever that segues into, maybe top 5 groups, top 5 whatever. We'll see where it goes. But
Hmm.
for sure, top 5 rappers. So you
Okay.
want to start? You want me to go first? You got your list ready?
Yeah, you go first, man.
Oh man, you still taking notes?
I'm still thinking, Sam. I'm still thinking.
All right. So for me, my top 5 has been probably established. I don't even know for how long now. That top 5 has not changed. I think it's shuffled
Mm-hmm.
in the last 20 years, but
Mm-hmm.
my top 5 in order. I know most people, no contra. No, I'm gonna give it to you in order.
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 is Eminem, Nas, Biggie, Jay Z, and Big Pun. So obviously, for me or anyone, when it comes to a top 5 and anything, everything we talk about is strictly preference and opinion. I'm not here to argue you over your opinion,
Mm-hmm.
unless you tell me, you know, 6ix9ine is the greatest rapper of all time. I'm gonna
Oh,
hang up.
you know you're not gonna get that from me.
Right, right,
You
right.
know
But
you're not
other
getting
than
that
that,
from me.
other than that, clearly this is just a discussion and exchange of minds and opinions. Just so,
Definitely.
Eminem, Nas, Big J, and Big Pun. And I get a lot of questions as far as Biggie and Pun. Obviously, two artists who didn't get to see their careers through,
Hmm.
taken from us very, very early.
Hmm.
Only two completed albums in their lifetime. And even with Big Pun's second album, a lot of that work was done post death, you know what I'm saying? A
Hmm.
lot of Terror Squad company and Fat Joe and his record label working together to put the finishing touches on that album. But I understand, how longevity plays a part
Hmm.
in it, but sometimes you just come across certain artists that they just hit you with that right hook and there's no coming back. You know what
I've
I'm
always
saying?
felt that because they only put out two albums, two complete albums, because they both have a third posthumous album. But seeing as how they only put out two complete albums, I've always looked at that as more of a like a sign that that
Hmm.
makes them great. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
because everybody else on your list had you had Nas, Hove,
MJ,
M, Pun, and who else? Who was the fifth?
Biggie.
No, I said either way.
Nas, Biggie, J, and Pun.
Okay. Yeah, so everybody else on that list had multiple albums. You know, Hove
Hmm.
has probably 12 albums at this point. Nas probably has around the same amount. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for anyone to stick out in that group with only two completed albums, that has to make you the best. You know what I mean? That has to make you one of the greatest. So definitely
Right.
shout outs to them.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, but I've always understood that conversation of longevity, and sometimes it plays to the benefit. You know what I'm saying? Other
yeah.
than that, because I've heard the whole, they've never had time to have a fall. There was no recession for them. There was just a peak, and then that was it. And in comparison to other artists who've been around and had albums flop, drop, and you know get hated on, get criticized, scrutinized, and those two artists not having that time to see where would they go. How
Hmm.
long could they keep it going as to artists like a Jay-Z, Nas, and Eminem who've been
Hmm.
able to give us 20 plus years of their life and give us
Hmm.
different albums, different styles, try new things, whether it succeeds or fails. We never got to see that with those two artists. But regardless of that, longevity doesn't always have to be for me the defining factor. You think about
Exactly.
artists, you think about
Exactly.
artists that came up in the 80s. Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, KRS-One. Today, if you talked about these artists, people will look at you like, who?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
longevity doesn't take away their impact. It doesn't take away that they're pioneers of the game. They paved the way for a lot of artists. They created lanes for these artists. If there was
Hmm.
no Rakim, there's no Nas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If there's no LL Cool J, there's probably no Eminem, no Jay Z.
Hmm.
But it's just one of those things where I hear a lot as far as those two artists being that they passed away, only giving us two full studio albums. But yeah, that's my top five. Eminem is my guy. Um, for me, obviously, it's a preference. I understand that Eminem is not everyone's cup of tea.
Hmm.
That's definitely he's a whole different realm. But it
Hmm.
doesn't take away from the skill. It doesn't take
Yeah.
away from the artistry. It doesn't take away from the fact that he is 100% a student of the game.
Hmm.
I don't care about his skin color. I don't care about where he comes from. I understand hip hop is black music,
Hmm.
100%.
Hmm.
I'm from the Bronx. I get that. I understand the essence of it. But to me, that man has mastered every single element in the form of hip hop,
Yeah.
from battle rap to cadence to storytelling. He's a lyricist. You want punchlines, you want hooks,
Yeah.
just because they may not fit you, and what you may want to listen to doesn't mean that the man is not able to do it and pull it off.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of flack for him and understand that, oh, Eminem's not played in the club. So what?
So what? I
You
don't
know,
go to
like,
the club, so
so the fuck what? You know how many artists don't get club play?
yeah.
So what? Joe Budden had Pump It Up play in the club forever, and it still plays in the club. What does that do for him?
Mm-hmm.
Am I supposed to put Joe Budden on the all-time list because he gave us Pump It Up? That
Mm-mm.
was his one moment in the sun. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Sad
for
to
me,
say, but yeah.
that's my guy. At first, though, it wasn't always that way. To be honest, that was something probably in the last 10 years that I decided. Being able to see him go through what he went through, the highs and the lows,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to get to a point where he's at now, pushing almost 50 years old, if not
Yeah.
50 this year. I think
Yeah.
he turns 50 this year. Um, a guy that struggled with drugs and alcohol, who came from horrorcore rap, battle rap, and talking about killing his mom, his
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, and
Mm-hmm.
he even killed Dr. Dre. But
Mm-hmm. He killed everybody. I think he might
you
have
know what
killed
I'm
you on his last album.
saying?
Killed
But
everybody.
seeing him find his way, not losing his touch, he's still a lyricist, and it's even deeper now. Like the man can manipulate the English language unlike anyone that I
Better
ever
than
heard.
anybody, yeah. I can't argue that. I can't argue that at
You
all.
know what I'm saying? And whatever flow you want, he can do it. You
It's
know what I'm
there.
saying? Like he's gone on tracks with Young M.A. and he's done the whole rapid fire flow for some time. He's given us rap with an accent before. Like the
He's
man
covered
has
it
done
all.
so much. He's done it all.
Yeah.
And to me, he's one of the few that have mastered the art and he understands the essence and the art of hip hop. And if you watch any interviews, like the dude is just a fan. He's a student.
Yeah.
The love that he has and the praise that he has for the elder statesmen, for the LL Cool J's, for the Run DMCs, for the Naughty by Natures, and like he did a interview on the podcast, and he had a room with just cassette tapes in the
Mhm.
background, like all cassette tapes. He's been collecting it for years and years and years now. The man. So to me, it's definitely it. It used to be Nas. Nas used to be my guy. But Nas, to me, he's maintained some level of consistency, but I feel like there's been no character development. Like
Mhm.
Nas is just Nas, and for me, he's been hit or miss. Is either he pulls a string together and all right, this album is dope, or you get a Nas album and you're just like, all right,
Yeah, I think
like
we've had the
it's
conversation before. The thing with Nas is his I, I don't want to use the wrong word, but I guess what I'm thinking is the inability to choose the right production because regardless of who the producer is, I think his beats are what lack. Because
mm-hmm.
lyrically, he's not missing anything. His ability to make a song, he's not missing that. You know what I'm saying? But I think production wise, that seems to be where he falls short. So, but that's neither here nor there. I guess that's he's still on my top five. So, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And then I got Jay. I got Biggie, number three. Um, he's just to this day with just two albums, and we spoke about this.
Mm-hmm.
If you took Biggie's collaborations, features, and his two albums,
Mm-hmm.
just from 1992 to 1997,
Mm-hmm.
in that 5 year span, you
Mm-hmm.
probably have the greatest album of all time.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Like you were talking about how people come up to you about longevity. Um, I don't know, man. For me, longevity doesn't say a lot because there's some rappers like okay, we had the conversation yesterday about the game. The game's been in the industry. He's been he's been out here for 18 years now.
Mm-hmm.
He dropped his first album 04, 05. You know what I'm saying? So 18 years that he's been in the game, but how many people have him in the top five? You know, not saying that no one does, because I'm sure there's somebody out there who considers him top five quality, but is that really somebody who you put in your top five just because he's been out for 18 years? So it really doesn't matter how long someone, for me at least, I don't think it ever matters how long someone's been doing something. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? If you and I get in the car and we say, yo, let's go find a basketball court to get a pickup game going, you know, that one game that we play might be the only game that we ever play with these other five people, with these other three people, whatever the case may be. But if we
Mm-hmm.
win, is somebody gonna be like, oh, them dudes wasn't nice because we only played that one game? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I look at the whole thing. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
longevity, it helps, but
Right.
it's not necessarily a huge deciding factor when coming up with, top five or coming up with grades. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly. And
yeah,
that plays back to Nas. Nas has been around since '91 when he did Live at the Barbecue and
that's 31
dropped
years.
dropped Illmatic the same year as Biggie dropped Ready to Die in '94.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that as far as longevity, Nas being around for so long, yes, Nas is one of the all-time greats. We all recognize that. No one's ever going to take that away from that. He
Mm-hmm.
has the respect of his peers and the industry. Everyone knows Nas is a hip hop legend.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that Nas has had some albums that we've all questioned and we're just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So no one escapes that. Jay-Z didn't escape it. Nas didn't escape it. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes longevity, when you're around for that long, you just open yourself up to more criticism, like anything. When you do it for that long, and it's crazy because I keep hearing about it and they talk about longevity. I give LeBron James credit for longevity
Mm-hmm.
because he is physically doing something for
Right.
a long period of time that
Right. Right.
takes a
Right. Right.
toll
Right.
on
Right.
his
Right. Right.
body.
Right.
We're talking about artists that step inside a booth
Mm-hmm.
and it just comes down to your creativity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not an artist and I can't sit here and say, well, you run out of that. It's something you lack. But, the whole longevity thing, look at LL Cool J. Man,
He's
dude's been
another
around
one.
forever. You know what I'm
Almost
saying?
40
Like,
years he's been around.
right. I guarantee you, if you put a microphone in front of Rakim, he'd probably give you a freestyle better than anything that you've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
some people, it's just a gift that you have. And,
Yeah.
it all comes down to being able to adapt. Can these artists adapt? Can Nas adapt coming out in 1994? Now it's 2001. Now it's 2010. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's 2022. Being able to adapt, adjust, reinvent yourself, saying that to me is what helps as far as longevity.
Yeah.
Jay-Z coming out in the beginning where it was very pro fuck this, fuck women, and now obviously Jay Z is a grown ass man in his 50s. If he's running
Mm-hmm.
around saying the same thing, what like we're all gonna look at it and be like, come on, bro. You're not
Yeah.
gonna buy it. You're like you're
Right.
you're a multi-millionaire entrepreneur and you're still talking about fuck bitches. It's not
Yeah.
believable.
Yeah. 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 There's no growth there. There's no
Right, right.
evolution. Yeah. Yeah.
But lastly, Big Pun. Big Pun is my number 5, closed out. And it's hard to take him off of that spot because one, there's not many people with the skill level that can knock him off that spot.
Mm-hmm.
He is literally the Puerto Rican embodiment of what the Notorious B.I.G. was.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up, And I'm not saying he's as good as Notorious B.I.G. because obviously Biggie helped create that lane and Big Pun just followed suit. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? But Big Pun, when he came out in 1998 and dropped his first full album, Capital Punishment, in that era, 1998, which was like another golden era of hip hop, because that year we had so many artists debut.
Yeah.
So many artists just came out with so much fire, so many classics in 1998. Like the amount of talent that you could consume and buy CDs for in 1998 was crazy.
Yeah.
But to me, Big Pun is just one of those artists that also the ability to maneuver and manipulate words, syllables, metaphors, punchlines, his cadence, like, all that talk about how big he was, right? He's called Big Pun for a reason. When he gave us, that dead in the middle of little illittle, little did we know that we riddled some middlemen who didn't.
Yo, man.
Like,
Yo, my daughters hear me spit in that journey. They look at me like I'm retarded, but I be, I go
right.
crazy when that
You
part
know what
come
I'm
on.
saying? And that we're talking about a time in 1998 where that rapid fire flow was not common. Artists didn't do that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
especially for
that was
somebody as big as he was to
exactly.
have the breathing control to even spit all of that. Like he was,
Hmm.
for me, he was one of those rappers. Much respect to Twister, much respect to everybody who spits fast. M does it, um, but when it comes to that fast rapping, putting a million words into a bar, it's more amazing that he did that at his
Hmm.
size. You know what I'm saying? Because I lose my breath walking out the door. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Like this is
that breathing control was crazy, bro.
insane, son. So
God
it's
forbid the
like,
elevator don't work.
man. So so I think,
Hmm.
yeah, man. I definitely. I think Pun might be in my top five as well.
Pun.
I still didn't finish my list.
Yeah, but that he and the do pop, you know what I'm saying? When he gives us still not a player
Yeah.
to this
Hmm.
day, it's just one of those songs. And to me, honestly, it's something that you had to be there for. But when I hear
No, but I
Big
think
Pun
it
still
aged
not
well
a
too.
no, not the song. I mean, when it came out,
Hmm.
when Still Not a Player comes on, it's a song that just takes me back to
Hmm.
growing up in the Bronx, and it reminds me of spring, summertime because that's when the album dropped, and
Hmm.
you just hear everyone bumping in their cars with the windows down, driving around in the Bronx because
Hmm.
it's a proud moment. You know what I'm saying? It's like here's this
Definitely.
Puerto Rican dude, who's representing the Bronx for us. Up until that point, all we had was really KRS-One,
Hmm.
who did his thing, you know what I'm saying? But by the 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, KRS-One didn't really have that same pull. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like people weren't
Right.
exactly looking for KRS-One. It doesn't mean he didn't have his fandom. It didn't mean he disappeared. It didn't mean he fell apart. It was just
Yeah.
KRS-One wasn't able to keep up and stay relevant.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So having Big
Hmm.
Pun come out, be that Puerto Rican, not only represent Hispanics, people don't know Ed is Hispanic if y'all don't
No,
know.
people know.
But
People know. I'm very vocal about that.
but if our viewers and listeners don't know, Ed is Hispanic. You
Yes,
know,
I
so
am.
even
I
though
am.
Big Pun may have been Puerto Rican, he didn't represent just Puerto Rican. He's represented Hispanics. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Being able to get into the hip hop game and represent because it's part of the original essence and how it started.
Hmm.
Being house parties in the Bronx, b boys and DJs, and it all blacks and Hispanics, and that's
Hmm.
how it all started.
Hmm.
That's what the Bronx is and represented. So having Big Pun come on and be on a whole different level. You know what I'm saying? Because although Fat Joe had been around for a while at that point by 1998,
Yeah, he wasn't
Fat
doing what Pun was
Fat
doing.
Joe was not moving the needle. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? He was not moving the needle for the hip hop game as far as Puerto Rican community, the Bronx. He did his thing and he's trying. You know what I'm saying? But having that combination with Fat Joe there playing the whole twin brother theme,
Hmm.
that was just something that you had to be there to understand and recognize how
Yeah.
impactful it was,
Yeah.
especially so many years later with only two albums in. You know what I'm saying? If you're not old enough, if you weren't around to appreciate Big Pun, then you really won't be able to understand
Yeah.
what that man did for the game. And if you try to watch an episode of Drink Champs, good luck because Noriega won't be able to let anyone explain it.
Nori not gonna let nobody have that conversation without interjecting the entire way through.
Nah,
So
man. But that's my top five. Again, M, Nas, Big, J, and Pun. I'm not gonna dive too much into J. I don't think I need to.
nah, you don't need to.
I will leave that to you because I'm sure he's in your list.
He definitely
So
is.
he
Definitely
definitely,
is.
it's self-explanatory with Jay-Z, whether you're 30 years old or 20 years old, 40 years old. Almost everyone is a Jay-Z fan. Almost everyone recognizes
Yeah.
Jay-Z
Yeah,
as
he's
an
kind of
all-time
like
great.
yeah.
You know, he's like the Babe Ruth of hip hop. He's just one of
Yeah.
those.
That's a good way to break it down.
He's gonna go through all generations, and people will always acknowledge him
Mm-hmm.
as a great.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
what you got
okay.
for me, bro?
With that, um,
Dylan.
my top three never changes. My top three
Mm-hmm.
is like you said, yours is locked in. My top three is always locked in. Uh, at number one, I got Jay-Z. Number two, I have the Notorious B.I.G. Number three, I have Nas. Four and five, Gil helped me through this last night. And you know what? We just had the conversation about Pun. I feel like I gotta put Pun in my top five just because, everything you just said, he embodies what the Bronx is about. He's and even with just those two albums, he did, I feel, so much for hip hop in terms of, lyricisms, music, songs, because every time that he dropped a song, I felt like it was a hit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It might not have been a lot, but it was like, damn. And then when you listen to the albums, it's like lyrically, this man is a fucking genius. You know what I'm saying? Like, aside from everything else, it's you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of rappers better than him. You know what I mean? Even if
Right.
you feel you find one or two, you're not gonna find 10, 15, 20 people that are better than Pun. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, and to round off the list, I decided I was gonna put DMX on there because DMX, you know, for those watching, me and Gil have these conversations every single time we talk. So, but I explained to him it's always hard for me to find those last two spots because, I listen to hip hop, you know what I'm saying? I'm a hip hop head. So like I listen to a lot of people, a lot of, not a lot of new people, some
Mm-hmm.
semi-new, maybe one or two new guys, but
Right.
um with DMX, it's just like even my wife loves DMX. Put it like that. And she's not someone who I would say is like heavy into hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like with him, for me, DMX kind of embodied like what a black rock star would be. You know what I mean? Like, just don't give a fuck attitude. I'm gonna do what I do. Anywhere I go, I'm bringing all of my dogs with me, and you're not telling me I'm not getting in. You know what I'm saying? The
Mm-hmm.
tattoos, the motorcycles, the walking around without a shirt and the Timbs on, and like DMX, I feel, and maybe it's not my place to say this, but he kind of gives me that vibe like he's a rapper's rapper. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like, I think you would want to be like DMX if you were a rapper. You might not have that same aggression. You might not have that same style. There's only one DMX. You know what I'm saying? So we're
Right.
not going to get that from anybody else. But I would imagine that everything that he was able to accomplish through his music,
Mm-hmm.
you know, down to his attitude, if I were a rapper, those would be things in my notepad. Like, okay, got to do this, got to have that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when he dropped, he that was '98 when he dropped his first album as well, right?
Yes, sir.
I feel like, and that's where I got the whole thing about a black rock star because I feel like he came in so strong, it almost felt like he was already here. Like he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
new. Like it was just like, oh shit, this DMX guy is like, you know what I mean? Like, because when he dropped Rough Rider Anthem, Where My Dogs At, all that shit, it was like, yo, this
Mm-hmm.
shit is fire.
Bro.
And I feel like he had that out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And every time he dropped something, it was like, oh my God, this nigga is amazing. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
thank you for helping me try to round out that that list. Um, you already spoke about
I
M,
got
you
a
already spoke
question
about
though.
Pun. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Let's make this a little bit more interesting, dude.
Okay.
So who did it come down to for that final spot? If you had to give me the last three artists that you had to debate over, who
Ugh.
was it?
Um, Jadakiss was on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Kanye was on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, M was on that list, although M, I love M, but I don't love M like you love M. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he's one of the greats. But even Method Man came up on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Buster came up on that list. A lot of people came up on that list. I like some new guys, so I had put Pusha T. Well, Pusha T's not a new guy, but you get what I'm saying. Pusha T was
Right.
on that list. Smoke Dizzle was on that list. Action Bronson was on that list. As far as like those last two, I had hell, dog, trying to figure out who I was gonna present in my top five. So it
Yeah.
became a battle royale between all those names. So
I understand what you say about DMX. So like it's like it's like Hulk Hogan, right? When you see Hulk Hogan, he is the embodiment of what a wrestler should be,
mm-hmm,
right? If you didn't know anything else about Hulk Hogan, if you just looked at him,
mm-hmm,
you was just like, he's got that it factor.
mm-hmm.
That's who I
That's the
want.
guy.
That's my champion
That's the guy.
right there.
Yep. Yep.
That is the
Yep.
DMX. You just look
Mm-hmm.
at him, where he was, you know, I get the comparisons. We obviously before him we had Tupac, who was also that black rock star,
Mm-hmm.
bald headed black rapper,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
very outgoing, driven, outspoken, but obviously where they differed was Tupac was a poet.
Yeah.
Tupac was a man for the people, a movement,
Mm-hmm.
like if Tupac was around in the 60s and 70s, he would have been right there as
With
far
his
as,
mom.
civil rights movements as a
Yep.
Black Panther,
Yep.
supporting Malcolm X. Like that's where the defer and DMX was our religious version where, yeah, he gave us Get At Me Dog and
Mm-hmm.
this is big that I'm a freak with. Just
Yeah.
drop the real. And then next thing
But then he dropped a
you know,
prayer.
breaking down in tears, praying on stage, you know what I'm saying? But that's the struggle, and he embodied
Yo,
the struggle. He is the
yo,
living embodiment of what it's like to be someone who came from rags to riches, who
bro.
struggled, grew up in the hood, fought for everything, and wanted more, and was driven to be more. Didn't settle, didn't
Yo,
take no for an answer. Like that is who DMX was.
a quick story. I never shared this with you, but I know you'll appreciate it. When we were kids, by the way, in 98, I was 11, right? So when we were kids and my parents went to work, we would stay with my grandmother, right? Who lived right up the block from you, as a matter of fact. And I'll never forget, there was something on MTV or BET, one of those music channels, and it was X performing. He was doing like a live performance. Don't ask me what this was because I don't remember. I just know I was watching DMX and I'm like, yo, this shit is fire. And you know how it is when you're watching anything around your grandparents and your parents is always like that little air of they gonna tell me to turn this shit off. They gonna start asking questions. It's gonna be something, right?
All right.
And DMX is performing. You know how DMX get down, sweating, energy, screaming, barking, killing the fucking show. Then at the end of it, he starts tearing up. He puts his hand in his face. He starts saying a prayer. I don't know what it was about that prayer that set my father off. My father was like, "Yo, turn this shit off." You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like, I guess maybe I can't think for my father. Lord knows what he was thinking, but he just watched this whole performance, knowing he's cursing up a storm, going crazy, shirt off, sweating. Maybe that might have came off demonic in some way, and then for him to go into prayer, I don't know. But yo, I just thought that was one of the funniest things ever, and that's one of those moments that stayed with me forever. Like I'm like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
I'm never gonna forget my father losing his mind at my grandma's kitchen at her
Mm-hmm.
dining room table because I'm watching DMX and this nigga's like going from killing this one and screaming this one and sweating and now he's just saying a prayer. It's like, yo, whatever this is, I don't like it. Turn it off.
Like he just talk about Damien. Now he praying.
Yeah. And it's like, but you know what? Like you said, I feel like that was that struggle. Like that was, and I think that's beautiful because that embodies the angst of the youth. You know what I'm saying? It's like we may go through this and we may have these moments where we come off as whatever we come off as, but we still want that love and that, some form of spirituality or some connection to something greater than ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I feel like nobody had that like DMX. You know what I'm saying? To be honest with you, I can't think of another rapper that dropped prayers in his albums. You know what I mean? You might be
Not
able
like
to.
that. Nah, not like
There
that.
you go. You know what I'm saying? Like
Not like X.
none like X. I think maybe the closest that might come to it is Nas, because Nas will drop a couple of God bars. You know what I'm saying? He will, and not just in the slang term of calling himself God or anything like that, but like Nas will bring up some form of God, angel, biblical something. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
as far as prayer goes, nah, like nobody gave us that like X. So I felt like that was a very rightful place in my top
Hmm.
five. And like I said, my top three don't move. Depending on the day, my last two might, but those two are as solidified as anybody can be in anybody's list. So,
Yeah. I
and as
dig
far as
DMX. I don't know if DMX is in my top. Well, obviously he's not in my top five, and I don't know how further down the line he would be for me. Because I can think of artists like LL Cool J. I think of artists like Busta Rhymes. I think I would definitely put DMX over Method Man. Obviously, DMX is going over a lot of people.
Mhm.
Skill wise, obviously, Jada Kiss has the more skill as a rapper.
Yeah,
But Jada Kiss ain't put out no joints like DMX first three albums. And it's just like, Kiss had its hits, but
hmm
it wasn't as like what DMX did still to this day. And DMX first album songs to this day, they
still
get played
right.
on movies, you know what I'm
hmm
saying, commercials, and
hmm
you ain't hearing that from Jada Kiss, and that's
Right.
just because
Right. 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 Right.
DMX was able to
Transcend.
propel himself
Yeah.
into pop culture status. Not
Yeah.
everyone can, put their stamp on a time and an era of culture, and
Yeah.
that's part of it. The reason why we talk about 80s pop culture is because of the look, the sound and the music, the movies,
Yeah.
right? Like it all had its part and it just stands out.
Yeah.
So DMX was able to do that with just 2 years left in the 90s. And that man put out two albums in 1 year, three albums in 2 years. And,
hmm
he was legit with that first album. He became the most popular rapper in the game. There
hmm
was no questions. It wasn't
Yo,
Jay-Z. It wasn't Diddy. It wasn't Snoop. It wasn't Dre. It was DMX. In
yeah.
1998 and in 1999, there was no hotter rapper in the game.
It wasn't Jay-Z, it wasn't Snoop, it wasn't anybody else in that time period. It was all X.
Right? Yeah. Like anyone who's watching, like if you go back and Google albums that dropped in 1998, the amount of talent, whether old or new,
hmm
there was an abundance of hip hop to consume in 1998.
hmm
And he was able to just leapfrog any album
hmm
that dropped that year. Like, to be perfectly honest, Jay Z dropped Hard Knock Life in 1998.
hmm
And for us in New York, because viewers got to understand this is two grown men from the Bronx living in New York. So
hmm
obviously, anything that was going on in Cali, anything that was going on in Tennessee, in Georgia, in
hmm
Florida, we can't speak on that. But back in New York,
hmm
Jay
Jay-Z
Z
had the
at that
game in a
point,
headlock. Yeah.
I wouldn't say he had the game in a headlock. I think Diddy
Well,
had the
no.
game in a headlock in 1998, but
Yeah.
Jay Z dropped Hard Knock Life. and that's where Jay-Z decided to propel himself into pop culture. You know, that song with Annie, it
Mm-hmm.
was he got his Grammy off of it,
Mm-hmm.
sold millions of copies. It was a huge success.
Yeah.
Huge success. But even with that, still Jay-Z had a DMX feature, and still DMX was
Mm-hmm.
able to outshine Jay Z in what was it's hard. I don't think there's many albums that could have competed commercially with
Yeah.
DMX. I mean, with Jay Z other than DMX. You
Yeah.
know, but you
Uh,
had Black Star that dropped that year. You know, you had Big Pun drop their first album. I think I want to say it was Outkast Aquemini dropped. Like
why do I remember that being like 96?
I could be
Aquemini?
wrong. Unless it was 18 aliens, but I'm not sure.
It might have
I
been.
remember it might have been 18 aliens, but I know Outkast dropped. Like it's insane. It's
Yeah.
insane the amount of albums that you go back and you look at how many people dropped. And I think that was Red and Meth Blackout album dropped that year.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just so much to consume at that point in time. And DMX was able to just outshine all these
Yeah.
artists. And they, you know, not only because he dropped his first one, but then later on in the year, he dropped the second one when
Yeah.
he gave us Flesh of My Flesh. And then in
I be,
1999,
yeah.
he gave us And Then There Was X. You know, like it was insane what he did in those 24 months. Like the level of work. And mind you, DMX didn't have hype coming out. Like DMX didn't have it wasn't like Drake, where Drake was being hyped up by every other artist. He's the next guy coming out.
Right.
DMX had features, obviously 24 Hours to Live.
Yeah.
He did Money, Power, Respect, but
Yeah. You were right about
it's
Outkast, by the way. It was 98 that they dropped the coming out. You were right. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. Like that's kind of something that I was talking about with about the whole being a rapper's rapper, like especially in hip hop, you know, in 98, because the internet obviously was a thing, but it wasn't like what it is now. You know what I'm saying? This was still you had to put in your footwork to be whoever you were gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
mhm,
almost like the analog version of whatever we have now. And to not only put out two albums in 1 year, in one calendar year, but to do that basically without some huge machine behind you, it's like, come on, son. Like that's not dead nice. You know what I'm saying? So definitely shout outs to X. Rest in peace to DMX. That's a big loss in the
yeah.
hip hop game. Rest in peace to
Hmm.
Big Pun. That's also a big loss in the hip hop game. So shout outs to those
Yeah.
guys. And
Let's see
those
if I
are
can stir some controversy though. Let's I know these last two episodes we have a lot of agreements. Let's see if we can start getting some disagreements. So
what's up.
you a Jay-Z fan.
Mm-hmm.
How, how did it feel back in 2001 with Nas?
I hate this nigga so much.
was was you hurt? There are people don't want to watch us just agree all the
Nah,
time.
nah.
Like,
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not that kind of fan. I'm not. Oh fuck Nas and I'm not gonna lie. From a sport like perspective, I did kind of feel away. I was like, damn, this nigga. But at the time, it was so hard for me to admit that Hove lost. But here we are. What 21 years later?
yeah.
Nas buried that man, son. That was it was.
Uh, yo,
And
I remember the track Nas got on with the Rakim beat, and he just cleaned house on the whole Rockefeller. When he got on the track, he did Memphis Bleak, Beanie Siegel, Jay Z. Like
Mhm.
he he was like hop on the Philadelphia freeway, eat beans fast. Like he was just oh my god,
Yeah, he
you know,
really he
like
really he really. The funny thing is, and this is something I had the conversation with you before. 2001. I was what 13, 13, 13 years old, 13, 14 years old, and at that age, especially as a hip hop head, you hold on to your favorite rappers almost, like anybody who watched wrestling, whoever your favorite wrestler was, you wasn't trying to see him lose a match. If you
Hmm.
into sports, whoever your team was, you didn't want to see them lose. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's how we look at hip hop. I think that's how
Hmm.
most people look at hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So at the time, and again, still, I was never one of those. I was never a stan. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I was definitely waving the Jay-Z flag, and when that moment happened, dog, I can still remember putting on Stillmatic and just hearing that intro, like, yo, fuck Jay-Z. I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck is this? And then
Yeah.
and then to think about it, in terms of like beef in hip hop, it's usually like a song or something on a mixtape, something that a nigga says on the radio. He put
Hmm.
this on his album. Like that intro is on his album.
Hmm.
Like, so you went and you paid your $14 to get your CD, open it, go through the booklet while you put the CD in the radio, and you're hearing fuck Jay-Z, and it's like, yo,
Right. Like how the level of disrespect when you realize that was Tupac being sampled saying "fuck Jay Z," like it was just like, oh
that's
Lord,
crazy.
oh Lord. So
That's crazy.
what today in 2022 makes you feel like Jay Z better than Nas? Because clearly you still have
Um,
him above.
um, See, it's hard to answer, man. Like the way I explain everything is by comparisons, right? So, and I think even you'd be able to admit, and remember, this goes back to teenage young me. You know what I mean? Jay-Z's the first rapper that I was listening to when I started to get into hip hop, right?
Hmm.
So when Reasonable Doubt dropped, that was crazy. When Reasonable Doubt dropped, that was what, 96? I
Hmm.
was 9 years old. You know what I'm saying? So that's fourth grade. Fourth, fifth grade, like you couldn't tell me nothing about Jay-Z because all his songs were fire to me. And this nigga was just, he embodied cool. You know what I'm saying? Um, and Nas, I like Nas, but Nas had like this air of being preachy and like, as a kid, you don't want to hear that shit. You know what I'm saying? This nigga over here talking about Egypt. Get out of here, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Jay-Z pulls up with the Bentley and the Air Forces and the, whatever. And it's like, yo, this nigga's cool as shit. So I think I just hold on to my youth in terms of my fandom.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying he's better. He's just the one that I listen to more intently.
Hmm.
He's the one that introduced me to this art form that I love. So it was like, for anybody who doesn't know, I'm a photographer. You know what I mean? The first camera I bought was a Canon. You got guys that aren't brand loyal. They'll buy whatever camera, they'll use whatever camera. For me, anytime I'm gonna go buy a camera, the first one I'm
Hmm.
gonna look at is Canon. Sony probably makes
Hmm.
better cameras as far as mirrorless or whatever the case may be. Nikon probably has a better automatic feature as far as that goes. You know what I'm saying? But I came in with Canon. I'm leaving with Canon. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? To keep it 100, I, I don't want to hear Hove in 2022. Like that's my fucking guy, but I don't want to hear Hove in 2022. I don't want to listen to billionaire Basquiat rap. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll listen to it. Don't get me wrong. Whenever he drops anything, I'm gonna listen to it. But
Hmm.
at this point, it's like, come on, Hove, you go, go be a dad. Go run your businesses. You know what I'm saying? Go be a husband. Go ride off into the sunset. Because I feel like Hove today is like like Jordan on the Wizards. You know what I mean? Like he still dropped buckets on niggas, but was he really Jordan? I'm saying in that last game with the Jazz, like
In today's realm of hip hop and today's talent and bats, yeah, he still is. He still is. That's why when a Jay-Z drops or Nas or Eminem, I'm running to it and I'm giving it a listen.
I'm
And
running to it too. I'm
even
okay.
though
So
it's
okay,
probably
you
not
see,
gonna
see,
it's not gonna raise your eyebrows. You're not gonna be like, oh,
that's what I'm saying. Though you see, let's
it's
keep it with the
still
controversy.
better.
Let's keep
It's
it. No,
still
no, 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 no,
better
no,
than
no,
what's out
no, no,
there.
no, no. Let's do this then. So let's keep it with the controversy. You just said you're gonna run to it, right?
Hmm.
I'm gonna run to it too. Now my question is, how much are you gonna like it? How much have you liked Hove's last two projects? How much have you liked Nas's last two projects? How much have you liked M's last two projects in
Hmm.
comparison to the first two? In comparison to the first three or whatever. Back to
That's a
when
little
let's not
that's a
let's
little
not
unfair though to
let no no
compare
no no no.
those.
It's not unfair. Let's not compare it to what's out now. Let's not compare it to what the new is, because that's not really where I'm coming from. Let's compare them to themselves. Let's compare them to who they were at the height of their fame and their talent and their work. How
But does
much?
that even how much sense does that make though? If I'm listening to Jay Z in 2022, Jay Z is not going in the studio hungry. He's not, right?
Yeah.
Like Jay Z's going in there doesn't mean he's just like, you know, whatever comes to mind, I'm gonna spit it and then I'm out, get my check and go. Pretty sure Jay Z has respect for the game. So does Nas, so does M. So there's a lot of these artists, it's just whether or not it's good. You know what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of artists today that it's all about quantity and not quality,
Mm-hmm.
right? So with these older artists, it's all about quality. Even though Jay Z was also a bit of both because he put out an album every year, but it was
Mm-hmm.
still quality.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, but to compare an artist to what they put out 20 plus years ago, where there was a different mindset, you know what I'm saying? And establishment now, where they're making their millions of dollars, they're not fighting. You got to understand where Nas and Jay Z were putting out albums in the 90s, the competition level was you were competing with album sales with Snoop, with
Mm-hmm.
Tupac, with
Mm-hmm.
Dre,
Mm-hmm.
with Wu Tang, with Mobb Deep,
Mm-hmm.
with the Fugees. Like you had a whole lot to worry about when you were dropping this album.
Mm-hmm.
It mattered when you dropped your album.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't just drop an album the same day as this person or that person.
Yeah.
Like it was strategic. Albums dropped
Yeah.
on Tuesdays, not on Fridays like today. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Tuesdays they dropped and you had to be very, very careful how you did it. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
Jay-Z dropped the Blueprint album on 9/11.
On 9/11.
Nine
Yeah.
11. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a classic album. To
Mm-hmm.
think that on of all days, you dropped this album, which is
Mm-hmm.
one of his best albums that he's ever put out
The
from
hands
top to
down.
bottom.
Yeah.
You know who else dropped on 9/11?
Nas.
Fabulous.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Does anybody remember that he dropped on 9/11? Nope.
Ghetto Fab.
Yep. That
Yeah.
first that first studio
No, no,
album
no,
dropped
no. Was
on
Ghetto
nine
Fab
eleven.
Ghetto Fab was 2001,
Yep. He dropped the same day as Jay.
and so
Nine
was
eleven. He dropped on 9/11.
yeah,
But
yeah,
to my point, back then, what you had to worry about, whether it was even in your own camp, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
Nas is from Queens and he's got to worry about, what Noriega and Capone going to drop and other rappers are dropping, you know what I'm saying? But it was a competitiveness, that's what the game is lacking now, that
Yeah,
competitive
yeah.
edge, you know what I'm saying? The hunger, obviously the money was different then than it is now. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? Record labels own everything and it was a whole different mentality then. So for these artists now, the biggest thing to me what separates Eminem from a Jay Z and a Nas is Eminem is still going in the booth trying to tear shit up, and you
Mm-hmm.
hear it in his music.
Mm-hmm.
And can he go back and be hardcore Eminem? Yeah, he can. How many people are hungry to hear that? I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to hear that version, right? But it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're in a lose-lose situation as an artist in their stature in today's day. Because if I'm Eminem doing some shady, I get criticized.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing the same thing you
Yeah.
did 20 plus years ago. This is you're never gonna change, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
If I try something new, why don't you go back to the old Eminem
Yo, you can't please everybody. And that
right?
and it's a mistake to try.
But at the end of the day, what they do today is still quality. What they do today is still put out together. It still has a purpose. It's thought
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Even Jay Z's 444. When you listen to it, is it the best album? No, obviously
No.
not.
But
But
it's a good album.
it's a good album. It has
Yeah.
a purpose. He has his messages in there. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a point to an album.
Yeah.
Today's hip hop generation, you buy an album or you stream an album, however you consume it, there's no point.
Yeah.
Because what these people are doing is just putting out shit.
It's just music.
It's
Yeah.
all quantity. It's just
Quantity.
putting it out, put it out, put it
Yeah.
out, put it out, put it out, put it out.
Case in
Drake
point.
has put out the same album for like the last 4 or 5 albums. It's the
Yeah.
same album. It's the
Yeah.
same album.
Yeah.
There's nothing different. There's no difference in the tone. All his beats sound the same. There's nothing different. Drake has done the same thing. But at the end of the day, it's all about quantity. The
Yeah.
people consume it and they love it. He gives them the same song recycled that
Mm-hmm.
plays on the radio. If this was the ringtone era, he'd be on top of it too. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But it's I appreciate an artist that can take their time. If you drop one album every 4 or 5 years, and that was the criticism against Nas, right? Because Jay Z
Yeah.
fans used to be like, "Hove dropping every year, where's Nas?" All of a sudden, that became the standard. You had to drop an album every year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That was part of the
Mm-hmm.
argument back then, 20 years ago, against Nas. Like Nas is not dropping every year. In reality, that wasn't normal. Artists didn't drop every year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Jay Z decided to do that because he had a goal. And there was an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Tupac was gone. Biggie Smalls was gone. Guess what? There's a huge, huge chair available.
Mm-hmm. A big
So he
spot.
went
Yeah.
for
A
it.
big void to fill. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
went for it. And his pursuit and his approach was, I'm gonna give y'all some shit every year. Now, was it a banger every year? No. Volume 1 wasn't a banger. Volume 3 wasn't a banger. The Dynasty album was a miss. So, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, even though we had that content, it was still quality. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So most of these young dudes, like Joey Badass and shit, like, yeah,
I still can't get over how you feel about him, son. I cannot. I can't, son. I love that dude, son.
bro, that dude is. If I step outside, if I lived in New York and stepped outside, I could find you 50 Joey Badasses, bro. Like there's just nothing. There's a difference between rappers and MCs.
Mm,
Joey Badass is a rapper.
mm,
He's a rapper. Just like
mm.
DMX was a rapper, just like 50 Cent is a rapper, just like Styles P, Sheik, Luch, You God, like these are rappers.
There's nothing
Joey
wrong with that.
Badass is a. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Not everyone has to be a lyricist. Not everyone has to be an all-time
But I
great.
don't
Not
know, man.
everyone
I
has
think
the potential. But Joey Badass dropped his album called 2000, and I told my man on the other side of this phone, it was fucking. It was mid. It was bland. There was nothing to it. There was nothing to it. There was nothing I didn't hear before. There was nothing special about it. He dropped an album. It wasn't whack. No, it wasn't. I'm not saying it's trash, but there was nothing to write home about. There was nothing about him or that album that was just like, ooh. Obviously, if you take that and you compare it to some other shit that's been coming out, are you gonna find something and that album's gonna be far, 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 far better than it? Absolutely, absolutely. But the pool now is different. And that's why when you listen to these older artists who have that old school approach, that when they go in there, they're gonna try to drop a verse, and I don't know if Jay Z goes in their booth anymore and tries to kill shit, or does he care to kill shit?
I
But
think,
I'm pretty sure he doesn't go in the booth hungry to make a
yeah, no,
statement and
yeah,
try to
yeah.
put together the dopest verse that you heard.
I think more so for him is just like you know how that old head get on the court and just embarrass a young nigga one quick time, quick little
Mm-hmm.
crossover, boom boom, drop a 2 point,
Yeah,
and then walk off. I think
you
that's
reach, I teach. Uh
right.
huh.
That's
You
Hove.
reach, I teach.
That's Hove. It's like, yo, I'm gonna show you that I can still do this, but I'm not about to run up and down this court with y'all.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's no disrespect to Hove. He's still my favorite rapper, but I feel like that's where I hold him now. It's like I'm not doing this to be the greatest. I already proved that. I'm just doing this because it's fun to me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like I said, I'm gonna give you that 1-2 crossover, the move that ain't never failed on nobody before. I'm gonna hit this jumper and then I'm gonna pick up my bag and I'm gonna go. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, but we got through that. So your next point was your top 5 albums, and this is of all time, right?
All time
So
top five albums.
you want to hit him with your list?
Now I'll let you start this one off, bro. I started with
Okay,
the last one. Go ahead. What we got?
okay. So for all time albums, I have Ready to Die,
Mm-hmm.
Biggie. I have Stillmatic by Nas. I
Mm-hmm.
have It's Dark and Hell is Hot, DMX. I have
Mm-hmm.
Reasonable Doubt, although I know we're not doing slashes, but Reasonable Doubt, Blueprint. For today, we're gonna go with Reasonable Doubt. And for number 5, I came up with Graduation, Kanye West. That's my top 5. And I think we base our top 5s as far as albums slightly different. For me, it's more so, it's always going to be, yo, which one of these albums can I put on front to back with minimal skips?
Mm-hmm.
And it still feels the same way it did that first time I put the CD in the radio. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like the first time I heard that song on the radio. Which one of these is going to give me goosebumps when I hear it? Like we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about Graduation yesterday, and for me, Kanye's first 3 albums is very few projects in music collectively, hip hop or otherwise, that I feel come close to those first 3 albums as far as somebody's catalog. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Even Hove's second album, we 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 both know that was not it. You know what I'm saying? DMX is another one. His first 2 albums were spectacular. You know what I'm saying? But the third one, did we feel that same way about the third one? You know, what was the third album? Was it Grand
And then
Champ
there
or
was
was it?
X. No,
And then
then
there
there
was
was X.
X. That one was fire too.
I was
That
just
one
about
was
to say, I
fire
was like,
too.
I don't know
Yeah, no, 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 no. I'll take that back with
what these
DMX. I'm
bitches
sorry.
want from my
No,
nigga.
no, no, no. No, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll take that back. I'm gonna take that back. But
I'll
for
take it back. I'll take it
example,
back.
look at Nas. Did you feel like Nas's first 3 albums were like, oh my God? Did you feel like the second and the third matched Illmatic? Like,
No,
you know what I'm saying? So,
not at all.
so for me, that's how I come up with my top 5 albums. It's like, yo, every time I hit dog, you called me the other day just to ask me something random, and I went into Biggie's interlude, um, and I lost my shit. You know what I'm saying? Granted, that wasn't on Ready to Die, but I know that whenever Ready to Die starts playing, I'm gonna listen to it. It's
Mm-hmm.
very few times that Ready to Die comes on or something from Ready to Die comes on and I'm skip it. Chances are, if I hear something from Ready to Die, I'm gonna go listen to Ready to Die. You know what I'm saying?
Word. I think
Same
the
with
only
Reasonable
thing
Doubt.
I think from Ready to Die is just juicy, only because you've heard it so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like that's if I hear juicy, it's just like you just want to get it out of your system. It
yeah,
was all a dream, and
yeah,
then you
yeah,
skip
yeah, 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 yeah,
it.
yeah. But that's what happens with that's the thing that happens with the radio. The radio is gonna make you hate your favorite songs. I agree with
Mm-hmm.
you 100% because I don't want to hear Juicy right now. But when I hear Respect, you know what I'm saying? Like when I hear all the other shit, it's like, yo, this album is insane. You know what I'm saying? From the intro, him being born and Diddy playing his dad. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
Warning, dog. I spit one into my daughter on the way to the school bus. Like, come on, son. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it doesn't give me that feeling, then
Mm-hmm.
it's not one of those that makes it to the top five. So those are my top five. Those albums, Stillmatic for me more than anything represents that time in my youth. We were just talking about, that era when I was 14, 2001. I was a freshman in high school. And Stillmatic was one of those albums that stayed in my CD player for a few months on my way to and from school. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm working on a picture right now that's based on a lyric that I heard on Stillmatic. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it has that it has that hold on me that I feel represents anything that you would ever put in your top five. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I came up with that list. What else? Reasonable Doubt. Again, like I said, that's Jay-Z. It's Dark and Hell is Hot. Like, come on, son. Come on. From the intro, which I had this conversation with Buddy the other day, because he was talking about Meek Mill's intro to Dreams and Nightmares, which I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, that's the second greatest intro in all of hip hop. And it might have dethroned the intro to It's Dark and Hell is Hot just as far as relativity and plays and whatever, because they play that shit in the club. And it's not really a club song, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the intro to It's Dark and Hell is Hot, for me, that was always like tap, tap, tap. You know what I'm saying? So, and the rest of the album plays out the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And like we were just talking about DMX. So I think that's self-explanatory. And so that's how I came up with that list. Ready to Die, Stillmatic, It's Dark and Hell is Hot, Reasonable Doubt, and Graduation. That's how I came up with that.
I respect that. I respect that. Yeah, I mean, for me, albums, like a classic album is a classic album, right? Like people would argue about this album better than this album, that album's better than that album, right? There's just certain albums that you know for sure. Obviously, Jay Z's Reasonable Doubt, Nas' Illmatic, Ready to Die, Wu-Tang 36 Chambers, Dr. Dre's Chronic, Rakim Paid in Full, Slick Rick's Children's Story. Like, it's go down the line for so many
Yeah.
classics, different time point. But yeah, for me, it's not so much based off of the feeling that I got or the time and moment. I think the only album on my list that I can say is more of a feeling is the Fugees' The Score.
Mm,
When the Fugees' The Score came out in 1996, with just those three singles alone, like you couldn't get it off the radio, you
mm-hmm,
couldn't get them off MTV. And back
mm-hmm,
then in 1996, hip hop still couldn't really break through the MTV.
mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, you had certain shows, but MTV still didn't dedicate as much time into hip hop unless it was just undeniable. Like it was such a hit that radio stations all across the country, then MTV gave you that time.
Yeah.
And Fuji's, when they dropped Ooh La 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 in
Fuji, nah,
1996,
yeah. Yeah, that shit was
wow.
fire.
It
That shit
was
was
like,
fire.
wow.
Yeah.
Like what Wyclef did on that album with production wise, Lauren Hill coming in and establishing herself as one of the, I don't want to
Greatest.
say dominant because she didn't dominate. She
Yeah.
wasn't in the game that long, but at that point, female rappers, it was still, no one had solidified a spot yet.
Yeah.
You know, you had Yo Yo and MC Light, but with a young Little Kim, young Foxy Brown. Once we heard Lauryn Hill on the score, it was clear as
Mm-hmm.
day who the best female rapper was in the game.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when they dropped Ready or Not, it's like, oh my God. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God. When I
Mm-hmm.
hear Ready or Not to this day, it's still just like that feeling going back to 1996, going to East Tremont and picking up that tape.
Mm-hmm.
It was different.
Mm-hmm.
That Fuji album was just so impactful. It was so different. You know what I'm saying? And again, in a time where groups were flourishing, you know, Onyx, you had Fuji's, you had the Lost Boys, you had a Tribe Called Quest, you know what I'm saying? You had Capone and Noriega, you had Mobb Deep, like on and on and on. You had Outkast out in the South,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Love Outkast. Yeah.
bro, but they were able to just head and above heels with that one as far as hip hop groups. Like you really didn't pay attention to
Yeah.
anything after that album dropped. But as far as albums go, top five, I got Fuji's The Score. Is in no specific order with the albums because
Okay.
that one, for me, albums, it's hard to narrow it down
Mm-hmm.
because that's such a wide range
Yeah.
in different sounds. And
Yeah.
ironically, even though Eminem is my number one, I don't have an Eminem album in my top five.
In your
But
top
that
five at
just
all?
no, that's just a testament to hip hop. It doesn't necessarily. You don't have to be one of the greatest MCs to put together a classic album.
Mm-hmm.
Illmatic, I don't. There's not many albums that I can even discuss in that realm when it comes to Illmatic.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very few albums, whether they're classics or not. But there's very few albums that I am willing to accept in that same stratosphere as Illmatic. 10
Mm-hmm.
tracks, no major features, just
Mm-hmm.
straight fire, nonstop hit, banger, the
Mm-hmm.
message, the flow, the lyricism on there. Like Nas just came out swinging, and
Mm-hmm.
he swung for the fences, and he hit a home run for sure,
Mm-hmm.
a grand
Definitely.
slam.
Definitely.
Uh, Biggie's Ready to Die for sure. That album right there, the mixture of what we saw for the first time was like a balance. We got a little taste of Big Daddy Kane in the 80s of trying to mix a little bit of that. I can do a bit of everything for you, give you something for the club, something to chill, something for you and the
Mm-hmm.
ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need me to flow, I can do that.
Yeah.
And with Ready to Die, we definitely got that.
Yeah.
Juicy was the story of the struggle, you know what I'm saying, on how they didn't have anything growing up poor in Brooklyn and
Mm-hmm.
you get warning and how people were hating on you because you want to come up and they
Mm-hmm.
want to they want to take you out, they don't want to see you grow and succeed,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got tracks like Unbelievable that is just a straight gut punch to the hip-hop game,
Yeah.
letting everyone know, try me if you want.
Yeah.
Like when you start a verse with BIG, aka BIG, get it?
Get
Biggie.
also
Like,
known as full appetite rapping. Yo,
like,
it's like
bro, it's you just like did he really just go off and tell him he told
just
us who
under
he
his
was.
name.
That's
Just
it. He
under
just
his
told us
name.
who he was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But
Ready
yeah.
to Die for sure. Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory. Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory is a phenomenal album, top to bottom. And in a time where West Coast rap was taking a stronghold on the game, Dr. Dre just dropped The Chronic, and everyone was just like, "What is the East Coast gonna do?" Q-Tip, Fife, they came together and they put the Low End Theory out, and that was the East Coast answer. And to this day, it's still one of those albums. So you hear Scenario, you check the rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something. If you don't know about a Tribe Called Quest, go look, do your research, go back and listen. There's a reason why Q-Tip is to this day one of the greatest producers.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best rappers as far as flow. Like it was just different.
Mm,
Wu-Tang Clan 36 Chambers.
motherfucking classic.
Wu-Tang, obviously, they have their own sound, their own style. So it's something that's not for everybody.
Hmm.
Like when you listen to Wu-Tang, you listening to them because that's something you want to listen to.
Hmm.
The reason why Wu-Tang didn't play a lot on radio because they weren't
It
for
wasn't
radio.
for the radio.
But when Wu-Tang 36 Chambers came out, and the very first release was Protect Your Neck, it was just like, oh my God. Mind you, this is 1993. Still, East Coast was trying to find their footing in the game where
Hmm.
West Coast was running away with it.
Hmm.
And the Wu-Tang came out, that gritty, grimy. They recorded this album in the RZA's basement, and
Hmm.
still was able to put together, with the sample and the theme of old school kung fu movies and shit like that. It was just, but when you hear Protect Your Neck, Wu Tang Clan coming at you,
Yeah.
like Respect the Deck, Raekwon the Chef, Ghostface, You Got, Method Man, the RZA, the Jizza, Old Dirty Bastard. It was a collective group of like
Yo, dog,
superheroes.
there will never be a group of 9 niggas in one group where all 9 of them is dead nice. I don't
Well,
think
we
there
all
will
question
ever
you,
be.
God. We all question you, God. But
No,
other
yeah,
than
of course,
that,
but even you God is like he was still dropping some shit. Like I don't think you would have made it onto that group if you wasn't nice. You know what I'm saying? Like
mhm.
honestly, like Riz is a fucking mad genius. You know what I'm saying? Like to bring all them niggas together. Did you by any chance watch the Hulu series?
I saw some of it. I never committed and finished it,
I
but it was
thought I
pretty
thought
interesting.
I thought that was yeah, I thought that was a really dope series, honestly. I think that's something you should check out. I think you'd enjoy it. Yeah, but see, I was 6 years old in '93. So I feel like that's why I got into Wu-Tang very late. Very
Mhm.
late. I was already in my late teens by the time I picked up 36 Chambers. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't change how fire that album was. Nothing will ever change how fire that album was.
Definitely.
And I feel like watching the Hulu series, not to make this about the series, it's more so about them. Watching the Hulu series kind of brought all that together. You know what I mean? To
Hmm.
where I may not have been there to experience all of that in real time, but it definitely made me feel like it made up for not being there in real time. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
now I got to see you. I would have never known that Ghost and Raekwon was sworn enemies, and you see them now, they're like Batman and Robin. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
dudes, according to the show, dudes almost killed each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would have known that Staten Island was divided between these two different hoods because it's just Staten Island. Now, I'm a New Yorker, you know what I mean? Like for us, Staten Island, nobody goes to Staten Island, so there's nothing
Nobody.
to know about it, you know. But yeah, shout out to 36 Chambers. That I definitely want to do something to recreate that album cover for my 36th birthday next year. So that's
Yeah. And lastly, for me, probably if I had to create and order a list for this, it would be number one is Mobb Deep's Infamous.
that's
Mobb
what's up.
Infamous to me is probably the most complete album that I've ever heard. Probably the greatest album that I ever heard. And ironically enough, right? It's not from Jay, it's not Nas, it's not M, it's not Big, it's
Hmm.
not your typical mainstream. It's just two young kids from Queens coming together, Havoc putting down the production, bro. But the way that album flows with only who's on the album? Q-Tip, Nas, Raekwon, and they got their boy. I don't remember his name as I talk about it, but there's someone else on there. He's not part of the group of Mobb Deep, but he's on their album multiple times. But that album right there, Mobb Deep's Infamous from beginning to start,
Yeah.
Survival of the Fittest, like the beat, the way Havoc went off on the production, that sound, the way it just captured New York grittiness
Yeah,
back in 1995.
yeah,
Like when you hear that, doom, doom, yeah,
yeah.
sending this one out, doom, doom, to my man Killer P,
Yo, that
doom, doom,
shit is crazy, son.
Havoc, Havoc going out and fucking sampling a damn stove going off, but
Yo,
and then turning that into an iconic sample for what became Shook Ones.
yeah,
Obviously we
yeah,
all know Eminem took it, put it on 8 Mile. It became, everybody from the 313. But
yeah, yeah.
when you
That
listen to Shook Ones, it's probably Prodigy's greatest verse that he ever dropped was on
that's
Shook Ones.
that's another one. That's another one that I keep on the top of my daughter's hip hop lessons is Shook Ones. Yeah, dog. You don't do Instagram anymore, but I have a highlight. It's basically hip hop for Z. And it's just when I walk her to the school bus in the morning, I spit a verse, whatever verse comes to mind. I've given her Jay-Z, I've given her Nas, I've given her Joel Ortiz, I've given her Biggie. Um, I have a sample playlist that I have on my phone that I have in my Apple Music, and I play that for her. And Shook Ones is definitely one of those joints like, yo, you got to listen to this. Like this is as far as like my daughter's hip hop education. There's no way she's not gonna know Shook Ones because that's just might not have been one of the albums on my top five, or might like you said, it might not have been that typical hip hop top album, but if nothing else, for her not to know Shook Ones, I'd have failed her a as a hip hop teacher. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely hear you on that one.
Yeah,
So that shit
that
is.
one right there. If you haven't heard it, and I understand nowadays Mob Deep doesn't ring bells,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? But that album right there, especially in that time in the mid '90s, where again, it's hard to over explain or express enough how important it is to understand that most of these artists and albums that dropped in the '90s, and it's not a knock on newer talent.
No, of course.
It's not a knock on, and it doesn't. Oh, you're the old man, or if you want to call me that, fine. But if that means that I prefer quality, it doesn't mean that there wasn't quality. It doesn't mean that Kanye West's Graduation is not a classic. It doesn't mean that Game's first album documentary couldn't be put up there as a classic, or 50 Cent's first album, or the
Hmm.
Eminem Show, or the Marshall Mathers LP. You know what I'm saying? Or like, Jay Z's Blueprint. Whoever you consider, whoever it is, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, it doesn't take away from these artists.
Yeah.
In their own right, they are doing their thing and they put in the work. People like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar for sure, lead the way for artists that are not exactly top tier pop culture mainstream artists, but it's definitely quality with them.
Yeah. I hear that.
So for Mobb Deep dropping that album out in 1995 in the midst of a East Coast, West Coast, battle, everyone jockeying for position, on the East Coast, everyone trying to make a statement, everyone trying to get radio play, everyone trying to have something out there that is just different from
Yeah.
someone else, like it was just a time where you just had so much,
Yeah.
and if you're unsure, just like Google a list of hip hop groups from the 80s that even came into the 90s, or just in the 90s, or just in the mid 90s alone.
Yeah.
Like for Mobb Deep to put that album out in the midst of that, like we're talking 1995, where in 1993 we got Snoop and Wu Tang. In 1994 we got Nas and Big,
Hmm.
and then in 1995, amongst all the other groups, all the other artists, you had Mobb Deep dropping this album,
Yeah.
their second album at that,
Yeah.
and it was just a straight classic from the beginning. Whether you're from Queens, Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, it was just undeniable what
Yeah.
they did with that album. And
Yeah.
obviously Shook Ones is the headliner. It gets a lot of play. 8 Mile helped with that shit, but there's so much more into it. Nas probably spit one of his hardest verses on that album.
Yeah.
And listen to the track called "Eye for an Eye." Raekwon's on it as well, so it's Prodigy, it's Havoc, it's Nas and Raekwon, and the beat is fire. Nas goes off on it. Raekwon does this thing. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? But it's so hip hop. It's so New York. It's everything all in one.
Yeah. I hear that. So before we wrap up, this is a little segment that I knew yesterday when we got off the phone I was gonna hit you with this, and I just thought that this would be interesting. You
Mhm.
know, we jokingly call each other old man, you know what I'm saying, for whatever reason, because we're not old, but we're seasoned, you know what I'm
There
saying?
we go. There we go.
I want to know, we'll say the last 3, 4 years, who's somebody who's new that you actually like? Is there anyone who's new that you actually like, that you listen to and it's like, yo, this is dope? It may not be that you like for whatever reason. Doesn't have to be lyrical, doesn't have to be popular, doesn't have to be anything. Who's somebody who's that you've heard in the last 2, 3 years that you're a fan of, that you will check their
Two
stuff
to
whenever
three
it
years.
drops?
Jesus.
Let's
That
let's extend it. Let's extend it to 4 or 5.
to be
Do that.
to be perfectly honest, it's probably just it's probably just one guy for me in that time frame. Obviously, his career probably goes a little bit further back than that, but of all people, who I really enjoy fucking listening to? It's Post Malone.
Really,
I enjoy listening to Post Malone. I fucks with Post Malone.
I was
Let
not
me
expecting
let
that answer.
let me yeah.
No,
Not
no,
only
no,
do I
no.
listen to it,
Go
I
ahead, go ahead, go
fucks
ahead.
with Post Malone.
Go ahead, go
I
ahead. I
fucks
want
with
to
him.
hear this.
Yeah, like I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because it's definitely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just something about him. Maybe just you listen to it and you can tell, like, dude does his thing. Like he cares and shit. Everything of his obviously isn't top tier, but Post Malone is someone that when they come out in the last 5 years or so, like he's probably that one artist that I found and I was just like, all right, I dig it.
That's what's
But
up.
in the pool that we have today, he's that one artist for me. I fucks with Post Malone.
I'll be honest with you. I was not expecting that answer, bro. That's what's up. That's actually really fire. That's really fire because I did not, yo, I was not expecting that at all. That's what's up.
Yeah,
Um,
I fucks with the country boy.
that's what's up. That's what's up. For me, I just recently got into him. A dude from San Francisco. His name is Larry June. My boy put me onto him, and that nigga is like one of my favorite rappers right now. To be completely honest with you, it's not. He's not. He's not the typical extremely lyrical guy. He talks about a lot of pimping and not for nothing more than anything else. He just pushes being healthy. He's rapping about smoothies. He likes oranges. Yo, but I listen to his music and I really enjoy it, son. Like everything that I've heard so far is like, again, remember the conversation we were having was like everybody wasn't always meant to be, the top rapper or the best rapper or whatever. It's just somebody who might have been entertaining for one reason or another. I think
Right.
that's where I put him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's not.
He's your ODB.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
We
think
all
that's
know ODB did it, and
yeah,
it wasn't because he was lyrical, but
yeah.
that motherfucker was entertaining as fuck.
Very entertaining. Very entertaining. Like this nigga, like I be listening to it, I be laughing, like because he be just saying some funny shit, like it's random as hell. But I
Mm-hmm.
listen to it, I enjoy it. I think he's nice. So that's somebody who,
Larry June.
yeah,
I
give it a
live in the
listen.
Bay Area. I've never even heard that shit.
I'll send you a playlist. I'll send you the playlist.
No,
I
no, no, no. I don't need no fucking playlist, bro. Don't send me no Larry June playlist. Just threats, pimp. cut you up, stick, shove you in the mattress. I don't want no Larry June.
Yo, son.
Nigga said I would send you a playlist. Ain't no fucking
Honestly,
playlist. Let me make this very clear for everyone watching. Whoever sees this, whether it's one person, 20 people, 100 people, I give everything a chance. No
okay.
matter what anybody may think, whatever you hear from me, I sit down and I'm on Fridays. I listen to these new artists and I listen to these albums and I'm in the car and I'm driving and I'm fucking miserable listening to it, but I'm listening to it. I would never give an opinion on something that I've never heard before. This is why I'm not going this live with June do, but I don't want a playlist. I will find it. I will listen to it
All right.
because I highly doubt that this nigga's worth listening to.
Uh, hey, I would say the same about Post Malone. You know what I'm saying? Just,
I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm
just
gonna give
put it
Jamba
out there.
Juice a shot. I'm gonna go listen to Jamba Juice or Lava June, whatever he's fucking called.
Ha ha ha! Very funny, very funny. So yeah, man, that's I think we can wrap it up there. I've already been giving my wrap it up music over here.
Yes,
But
sir.
this was a
That's
good
right.
one.
Signing off for episode 2.
Signing off. Eno Bull, my man, 3 letters. Gil in the
That's it.
building. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? We gonna hopefully be back soon with another one. And yeah, man, thanks for tuning in.
All right, bro.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace.